Well, good evening, everyone. Wherever you are on this universe, whatever plane of awareness you might be, perhaps you're on the physical plane listening to us tonight, or maybe you are, oh, thank you, Ms. Al, or maybe you are in some other plane of awareness. I appreciate you being here tonight and participating in this experience. Um, a friend of ours, someone whom some of you may know from the classes, is going through a really, really hard time tonight. Something really unpleasant happened. It's really not my place to tell you who or what happened. The person called me in confidence. I'm not sure whether that has been made public yet or not. So I'm not going to tell you what happened out of respect for this person, but I will ask you to join me in a short meditation right now. I'd like for you to join forces with me and send this person light so that the person can be strong at a time of need and know that the person is not alone, that we're all together in spirit, in soul. And actually, we are one huge family, all of us. And if anything happened to any of us, we would all be there, ready to help, ready to support one another. It's really, really important, as a human being to know that we're not alone. It is important. And we are not alone. And we all need to know that. We need to trust one another and have enough of this particular person. Something very unpleasant happened. And the person called me like in the middle of the night, and I was very happy to take the call and do what I can to assist. So join me in a meditation. Let's take a nice, deep, slow breath. And as you inhale and exhale, imagine that you're relaxing very, very deeply. Somehow, something within you begins to unwind and relax. You begin to relax and relax and relax. And that's always the first step in meditating, just relaxing your body a little bit. Because when you do that, what you're really doing, what we really want, is for you to relax your mind. So let's relax the mind by way of the body. Every single tension in the body is associated with with a thought. So by relaxing the body, we're really relaxing the mind. That's exactly what we want to do. Unwind and relax. And as you do that, sort of repeat my words in your mind, or at least say to yourself, yes, yes. And imagine a friend of ours, a person just like you or I. It could have happened to any one of us. And we're just going to imagine this human being, this, as A Course in Miracles says, a son of God. We're all sons of God. And the Course in Miracles uses the word son, both for men and women. Son of God. And he's now going to be receiving a great deal of affection from all of us. Dear God, we thank you for the opportunity to become aware of what this friend of ours is going through. Because by becoming aware of it, we have an opportunity to be of service, to be present, to help, to intercede, to be there for the person. We thank you for the opportunity to be aware of these things so that we may grow by being useful, by being present. We thank you, God, for the wisdom that you are giving us. We thank you for the light, because we're eager to share the light and help one another on this journey. Thank you, dear God. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so as we come back here, we realize one thing on a night like tonight, that some really, really unpleasant things happen to all of us at different times in our lives. I think that all of you on the line tonight and those of you listening to the class later would all agree that some absurdly unpleasant things have happened in life. And it's interesting because a lot of what happens to us doesn't really seem to bother us that much. We seem to be so desensitized or resilient, and we kind of bounce back and we keep on going, and that's good. However, there comes a point in our lives where that resiliency can actually become a problem because consciously or unconsciously, we adopt the attitude that we're going to be patching things up all the time. We're going to be fixing things. We're going to be improving things. And there comes a point in our lives where it is better to recognize that what we really have to do is sort of begin a new life. So the analogy that we use is, if you move into a really old house, you have two choices there. You can remodel the house one piece at a time, change the roof, change the floors, paint the walls, redo the plumbing, redo the electrical, or you can bulldoze the house down and build a brand new one. And sometimes it is cheaper and faster to build a brand new house than it is to remodel the old one. And I think you all have a grasp of that. It's interesting, at a factory, they can build a car every minute or less. They produce thousands of cars a day in a factory nowadays, in a modern factory. During the war, they were producing one huge bomber airplane every hour. I mean, it's unbelievable what you can do in a factory. Now, you take one of those planes that was made in 1 hour during the war, and you try to restore it, it might take years and years and years to restore it to flying condition. Years of restoration. It took 1 hour to make it. So I think you get a handle for what I'm saying here. Sometimes it's easier to start from scratch. In fact, I'm not making this up. That is God's system. We call this reincarnation. Sometimes there's so much accumulated there that we have to sort of let go of everything and start all over. Well, we let go of everything, including the body. We call that death here on the earth. But in reality, nobody died, nobody went anywhere. We just kind of rebooted everything. You know how the computer sometimes kind of gets stuck on you and you turn it off and turn it back on again? And that's exactly what this thing that we call death is. We call it death. And so it's a habit of the mind, just a habit of the mind to think that we can possibly die. But the only thing that really happens there is we reboot our minds a little bit. We kind of go to sleep very deeply, shed the body, let go of the body. But that's not who we are, and that's not even where the memories are stored. It's not. And people always tell me that they're interested in doing a regression. We're doing a retreat in December at the end of the year in Bermuda, in Bimini. And Bimini, as you know, in parentheses, is a very, very interesting place because, according to tradition, there are three places that were originally part of the Atlantis continent. One is Bimini, one is the island of Cuba, and the other is the Azores in Portugal. In other words, according to the tradition, Atlantis spanned all the way from Cuba all the way to the Azores. It's a huge continent. Most of the Atlantic today was Atlantis at one time. And according to the very same tradition, which was later ratified by or confirmed by Edgar Cayce, This continent went through three massive periods of earthquakes and sinking. It disappeared in three massive periods. One was roughly some 75,000 years ago. One was about 28,000 years ago. And one was roughly 12,500 years ago. So in pieces, it began to disintegrate and sink. Well, Bimini presumably is one of those places. So because we're going there at the end of the year, and because it's so connected to the past, that particular retreat is going to be centered around the concept of regression. It's unbelievably popular. Everybody wants to do a regression. Everybody wants to know about their past lives. And I'm happy to do it, and I love doing that kind of work. I absolutely thrive doing that kind of work. And I think of it as being beautiful because it's very liberating to know where we come from so that we can improve the quality of our lives by knowing what to work on, how to understand certain things, how to forgive others. It's beautiful work. It changes people's lives completely. And yet I'm here to tell you that you don't need a regression to know about your past lives. You really don't, because I'll tell you where your past lives, all of them are. All of them are in your childhood. So for about 3 years in every lifetime, we are incapable physically, the physical part of us is not capable of processing information and filtering out what we don't want. You're a baby. You're 1, 2, 3 years of age, roughly 3 years of age. You're not capable of reasoning, calculating. We just don't have the ability to do that at that age, no matter who you are. As a result of that inability to filter out, whatever you're exposed to becomes impregnated into you. It can be changed later in life, but it takes a lot of effort to make those changes. If you don't make the effort, your life is pretty much determined to be a continuous repetition in different forms, but a continuous repetition of your childhood. I'll give a simple example, and it may not be your case, but the same phenomenon happens to all of us in one way or another. I grew up in an environment that was a little bit tense. By that I mean, my family was, there's some tension, some constant disagreement, some tension, in some cases, violence, so it was a tense environment in my childhood. Well, I sort of reproduced one way or another that tension throughout my life in one way or another. It wasn't until after my second divorce, and particularly after I met Christina, that I began to really, really, really make a change in that part of my life. Now, is it because of her, or is it because the karma has been forgiven, healed, because of all the work that we're doing toward forgiveness, the Course in Miracles? You see? So then different things begin to happen in your life, and you don't repeat the same experience again. But for 50 years, I did. For 50 years, I repeated my childhood. And we all do that in one way or another. So why am I telling you that? Because if you really want to know about your past, you don't really need to look much further than your own childhood. In fact, if you really, really study the details of your childhood as though it's a book. See, the thing is that we don't remember most of it. And your parents, if they are with us still, they don't remember it either. Because parents, unbeknownst to them, act in such a way as to create the conditions for you to experience what you must experience. And what must you experience? Some type of reflection of your own past. because your own past has to connect to the present. In other words, we need to download into each body or each lifetime two sets of things: the lessons that we need to learn. Some people call that karma, what you need to learn, and what you have already learned. And some people call that dharma with a D, karma and dharma. So it turns out that life is extremely wise, and whatever you have already learned are actually the tools for you to learn what you need to learn. So I'll give you an example of how one thing compensates for the other. When I raced bicycles, I was, I back when I was racing, I studied a lot, and I had very little time to train. My thing was studying. I wanted to be an aeronautical engineer. I wanted to be on the top of my class. I studied a lot. I went to a school that was full time from like 8 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon. I studied a lot. And so my time for training was very limited. Other guys were able to train every day for several hours. Supposedly they should have been better than I, but I still won a few races. How? How? Well, I compensated my relative lack of training with extreme technicality. I was very technical. I was very, very meticulous about my technique. I practiced my technique in my sleep, in my mind. I tuned my bicycle down to the last detail. I paid attention to tiny, tiny details. And in some way, I compensated a little for my relative lack of training, and I won a share of races. I had a friend whose name was Tonyo. I'll never forget him. Tonyo did not train much at all, perhaps less than I don't even know, but he won even more than I did. Well, Tonyo had one particular feature to him. He was born extraordinarily strong. This guy was so strong, so strong. I mean, he was an exception. He was exceptionally strong that he would frequently break parts in his bicycle. I'm telling you, it's not such an easy, he would actually break pieces off of his bicycle. One time he broke a wheel just because of how much torque he was able to generate. One time he broke, he would break pieces off of his bicycle. Such was his strength. He was a monster of a rider, extraordinarily strong. So in the short races, because of his brutal strength, he was able to prevail and win, but he didn't train that much. So he was not very technical. He won on brute force. I don't recall ever beating him, but what I'm saying is we were in different categories. But the point I'm making is that he wasn't very technical. He didn't train a lot, but he was brutally strong. One thing compensates the other. Some other guys were not very strong and they were not very technical, but they trained every day for hours and they also did well. So one thing compensates another. I remember later in graduate school, I had a colleague who was Chinese and had a number of difficulties with the language, with a number of things, right? But she did really well in the classes. And the reason was because she worked for 20 hours a day on these classes. In other words, once again, we compensate. I had one ability when I was a student, and I still do. I have the ability to pay attention and absorb from the teachers. I've always had that ability. God gave it to me. I could pay attention, I could listen, and I could understand what was being said, and a lot of that would make sense to me. So I wouldn't have to study as much as some of the other people because I would have this ability to pay attention. One thing compensated for the other. Other people couldn't really follow the discussions in class, but they would study way more. So you see, we compensate. And what I'm trying to illustrate here to you is that we all have a number of qualities that we have developed in the past that we're born with, gifts that we're born with. We all do. We all do. There's nobody. Look, when you look at an ant, the little tiny animal, an ant has some remarkable qualities that you and I don't have. When you look at a rat has some remarkable qualities that you and I do not have. Look at a dog, look at an elephant. Everything in nature has qualities that we don't have. They lack other things, but they have some qualities. So every one of us human beings has remarkable qualities. I remember when I worked at the old office on Coral Way, there was a man whom I came to know a little bit about who lived back there behind the building. He's what we call the homeless. He lived there. And we would bring him food, whatever, and he just lived back there. And late at night, when I would go home, oftentimes his mind would be clear and we were able to talk. Many, many times we had conversations late at night, and he was pretty fresh mentally. During the day, oftentimes he was not quite all there and he would be screaming at the wall or something like that. But at night, oftentimes he was very clear. He knew, who he was, who I am, what I did, where I worked. He was quite clear. And that man has an unbelievable ability to survive with very little resources. In fact, he was literally capable of eating garbage. Now you might say, well, how is that a quality? Well, he was able to survive. He would scrounge around for garbage in some cases, and he survived. He did well. And so, again, it doesn't matter who you are. You see, you have qualities that the rest of us don't have. The trick for you is to identify those qualities and use them in the resolution of those lessons that you need to learn. So then you ask, well, what is it that I came here to learn? What is my mission? What do I need to do? Study your childhood and study your childhood carefully. Study your childhood very carefully, and you're going to see exactly what's going on with you. Your childhood contains everything that you need to know about your past, both your talents and your lessons yet to be learned. And we're all that way. So perhaps when you were a kid, you were neglected, let's say. That idea remains with you until you really work on it, until you really, really change it. And so if you want to know about your past, pay close attention to your childhood, the details. The trick, of course, is to remember, to know what really went on in there. Now, you might think that this idea of regressions is really complicated. You might be thinking that it takes a very special regressionist working with you. And there are some results that require the assistance of someone quite skilled to help you achieve. For instance, if we want to know things like dates or very specific details in a past life or something, it takes a lot of back and forth to confirm certain details. And that takes a lot of skill and sometimes a long time to really, really be able to get some historical details out of your past. But to simply have a pretty good idea of what happened or where you came from or what you've done or what was done unto you, is not all that difficult. We can do a regression right here, right now, if you want to. Let me ask you before I go any further, is anyone driving a car by any chance? Some of you have your cameras off. If you want to turn your cameras on, that would be better. But
I
appreciate that. I appreciate you turning your camera on. Thank you, Larissa. Is anyone driving by any chance? So Some of you are going to be listening to this later in the Academy's portal. And if you happen to be listening at some other time and you might be driving, I'm going to ask you to turn off the recording right now if you're driving a car, because we're going to do an exercise. And you're going to begin remembering who you are. Remember, the purpose here, it's not really important if you're rich or poor. I mean, that type of thing is not really what we're looking for. We're looking for something much more important than all of that. Who are you? What are some of the forces that shape your destiny? What are some of the things that are within you that determine some of the behaviors that you're now ready to change? We're looking for something much more important than details of your circumstances in the past. And so the first thing that you would do is you would sit or lay down comfortably. So long as you can hear my voice, you're fine. And what you want to do is to pay attention to my voice. Not because my voice is any special, really, but only because you want to focus your attention somewhere. In this case, my voice, just so that you can be guided somewhere. So listen to my voice and pay attention to everything I say. Focus on what you're hearing from my voice. There may be many other noises around where you are. You will simply gradually shift the focus of your attention from whatever's going on around you, provided you're not driving a car. You will shift the focus of your attention from whatever is going on to my voice. You will listen to my voice and allow yourself to relax. Relax your head and neck, particularly those tiny, tiny little muscles around your eyes. Those are the first muscles that you really, really want to relax. And as you do that, you will notice that your jaw begins to relax. Your tongue might be resting against your palate. Your teeth are separated. That's because your jaw is relaxed. And you're beginning to feel very comfortable. That quality of relaxation begins to spread from your eyelids all around your face. A wonderful sense of relaxation, peace. Just listen to the voice. Know that you're safe. Know that you're perfectly safe right now. Simply know that you're safe. You're not alone. You're perfectly safe. And so you continue to relax. It occurs to you to allow this profound sense of relaxation to be spread all around your body, right down your back to the tips of your fingers, all the way to the tips of your toes. A profound sense of relaxation. And as you begin to feel the sense of comfort where you know that your body is kind of sinking into the bed or the chair or the floor, the sensation of profound relaxation is so comfortable, so pleasant, really. Something amazing happens, and that is that you begin to imagine a door right in front of you. Now, some of you are imagining a large door, some of you are imagining a small door, but you begin to imagine a door, just a door. it occurs to you that this is the door you want to enter. And so you enter this door. And as you do, you find yourself in a dark place. It's completely normal. Take it easy. Your eyes adapt. And when they do, you can see. You can now see perfectly well. You can now see perfectly well. As you look toward your right, you see a stairway that goes down. Let's go down the stairs together, step by step. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Deeply relaxed and comfortable. Imagine now that every word you hear from my voice causes you to relax more deeply. And down here, where you're finally in touch with the core of who you are, you look around and you find yet another door. That door is really, really special. If you open that door, you go in what on the earth they call the control room, the control center of your life, the core of your mind. Only you can go in there. I can't, nobody else can. But if you want to, you can open that door. You can enter this room and you close the door behind you. As you do so, you find yourself in a room that is round. Even the ceiling is round. The room is all gray. It is all gray. The floor is black. At the very center of the room, there's a hole. You cannot tell how deep the hole is. It's a small hole, kind of a small ball fits through that hole, small hole, just a hole in the very center of this round room. Now that you're in, you cannot tell if there are doors. There doesn't seem to be any windows or anything like that. So you kind of keep looking at the walls. There's really nothing else in here. And you look and you look until a window seems to open up. At first, it's a little fuzzy, but you continue to focus on the image that seems to be forming there. And then, indeed, an image begins to open up. And you focus on this image. You're not looking for anything, you're completely relaxed. You're simply looking with a certain amount of anticipation to see what happens. And this image begins to form. For some of you, the image is fixed. For others, the image is more like a movie. That image is completely unimportant. It is just an image. So you watch it with curiosity, but you don't make a big deal about it. And now you turn towards your right and you find another image on the wall. That image represents one of your biggest strengths. Some of you are surprised. You had never considered that as a strength. For some of you, this surprises you because you actually thought that this characteristic was a problem or a weakness, but it's actually a strength, and you have it. Pay attention to how you're really built. You have remarkable abilities that you're not valuing yet. As these images begin to form on this wall, you begin to value so many parts of yourself that you hadn't valued before. What sort of person are you? As you continue to watch these images emerging on the wall, you continue to see parts of yourself that you knew about, but perhaps you didn't really value. And here we are. Value who you are, who you truly are. Who you truly, truly are. So you turn around again toward your right, and you see another screen on the wall. This time, you see some of the difficulties you must face. We all have them. Don't worry about it. Don't be discouraged. We all have them. But now you see some difficulties that you were not considering before. What we call denial on the earth. There's certain things that we don't quite acknowledge to ourselves that are a problem. We live in a world where sometimes the just is unjustly accused, and the unjust gets away with whatever. And I'm here to tell you that from a spiritual point of view, what you do and how you live your life really matters. Because you know how you're living your life, and that matters. You have something called a conscience. And so now that you turned around again and another screen showed up, you see images that are stored in your own conscience. Yeah, your own conscience. You see images. And it occurs to you that there are certain things that need to change, and only you can make those changes. Only you can make those changes. The good news is that you can make the change right now, instantly, once and for all. It doesn't matter what you thought in the past about change. I'm here to tell you that you can change whatever you want to change about yourself. Whatever your situation is, if you want to change, you can. Because where you are right now, in this control room, where you are right now, you have the ability to simply make changes to your person, to your behaviors, to your thoughts, to your feelings. You have the opportunity to make changes right now, whatever you want, whatever sort of change you want. And so you take a really good look at yourself. and you focus on the one thing that you're ready to change. Don't worry about how, don't worry about where it came from. Simply see yourself behaving the way you want to be. Let's suppose that you have always gotten up really late in the morning and you want to be more energetic. You want to get up early in the morning. Simply don't worry about why you get up late. Don't worry about that. Simply imagine yourself getting up early. See yourself getting up really, really early. See the result that you want already happening. You're creating that change right here, right now, on the spot, and it's all working for you. It's working perfectly well for you. You can make any other change you want. Because we humans are here to be co-creators of this world, co-creators of our world, co-creators of our destiny, co-creators along with God. And you're aware of God's presence in your life. And you're eager to accept God's blessings. But at the same time, you know that you are a co-creator of your own destiny. That means that if you want something, you have to make it happen. Because that's the whole point of it. The whole point of life here on the earth is that we're going to be co-creators. We are co-creators. Today is a wonderful day. Today is a wonderful day. Your life is changing for the better. You now come out of this room with your heart filled with gratitude, not so much because of the particular result that you achieved right now, but because you now know where to go to change. You can do this anytime you want. You can relax, close your eyes, imagine you're in this room with the round walls, gray walls. And as you turn around, you can see these different screens. And whenever you see something that you no longer want for you, you can turn off that screen, thus turning off that particular feature. You can make changes right here simply by imagining those changes happening, hence changing your life. My friends, the person who uses these techniques becomes a magician. They become a co-creator of their own destiny. This is what we are called upon to be. This is what we're called upon to be. This is what it's all about. It's all about becoming the co-creator. It's all about being the co-creator. It's all about discovering your power to create a wonderful destiny. And so as you begin to come back up the stairs and back to this world, and you gradually come back to your physical being and you begin to open your eyes, you realize that everything is okay, everything is fine. Everything is perfectly fine. You're doing perfectly well. And so you begin to open your eyes. And as you come back, notice how you feel. Notice, pay attention. Pay attention to you for a moment. Opening your eyes, stretching perhaps a little bit. And if anyone wants to share with us what you're feeling right now, what's on your mind, what's on your heart, that would be really awesome. We're going to be engaging for this next month or so, perhaps here, in more and more exercises. Rather than talking about theory, we're going to engage now in a cycle of actual exercises where we actually get something done during the class meeting. It is time we begin to actually create bigger and better results. It is time we actually begin to create bigger and better results. The time to discuss theory has already passed. Now it's time to create great results. And so, if there's anything that you want to say or bring up, this would be a good time. Does anybody want to say anything? Does anybody want to share? Andrea, are you about to speak?
I would like.
You seem to be getting ready to say something. If you are, no? Okay.
I do.
You do? Yes?
Yeah, I have
Who's
to. I
talking?
feel. Larissa.
Larissa, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Let me see. Hold on just a second, Larissa. Let me see if I can. Hold on just a second. I'm not on my computer and I want to increase the volume so I can hear you. Hold on just. I know you're speaking, but oh, here we go. Okay, can you speak now?
Yes.
Okay, better. Yes, please.
Okay. So it's funny that today I hopped on. I've been a little more busy, but I went into my room, and as I looked to the right, the first thing that I saw was a book.
Mm.
And our conversation today is so powerful because in the past 2 weeks, where I just started a new location, like as far as my business and connecting with specific people, actually a specific person, Um, I have been writing more,
Mm.
and he has shared pieces with me that he's written, and this weekend my journal got stolen, like my personal journal out of my car,
Oh, wow.
uh, and my laptop, yeah, a bunch of stuff, but they're irreplaceable things, and so I was like, this makes me feel like, okay, my past is kind of just staying there, at least like those things that had happened. And so, whether it's physical, mental, a lot of things from childhood come up. And I was like, was I so happy as a child? Um, and things that I used to do as a kid was take construction paper and make books and write.
Mm.
And so it was really funny that you were talking about this
Mm.
because I wrote, and then I think it was last night or 2 nights ago, I wrote a piece and I called it Life.
Mm.
And everything that you've just been saying, like you would have thought I had already listened to your discussion and I
Mhm.
wrote based on the discussion,
Mhm.
and how I literally spoke about life and how, you don't control the who, what, where, you don't really control anything, but there is a point when you are aware and that you do control, um, and have the ability to create what you want, and like that's where the
Mhm.
beauty lies. And so I thought it was crazy that I'm doing this exercise and it's like I look over, I'm in and out of my focus too because I struggle sometimes, but
Mhm.
it was like as soon as you said picture, I look to the right and I just see like a book, and then it's like just following your words and like hearing, I was just like, okay, wow, this is crazy. But it's true, we become like pioneers or artists, if you will, of our life once we get to realizing that we control that and have the ability to co-create, if you will.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because we don't just co-create experiences, we also co-create or create characteristics. Let me just tell you what I mean by that. You mentioned the
Oh,
what?
yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned the idea of focus, that sometimes it's a challenge, right? So I want to ask you, do you remember the old projectors, like a slide projector, a movie projector? Sometimes you would project an image on the screen and it would be out of focus, right?
Yeah.
And then you would turn a knob and then the image would come into focus. Do,
Yes.
do you have a picture of what I'm talking about in your mind?
Yes. From my
Okay.
childhood, yes.
All right. So imagine that in your brain, there's a little piece of your brain. Just imagine this, that is responsible for you to be able to focus and concentrate on one thing at a time. Now, there are advantages to having what they call disperse awareness. In other words, there are people who have the ability to pay attention to everything at the same time. Disperse awareness, they call it,
Mhm.
as opposed to focused awareness. The ideal human being would have the ability to do both. In other words, when needed, you can focus intensely on only one thing for any length of time that's required. And
Mhm.
when needed, you can have diffuse awareness and be aware of your whole surroundings when required. In other words, you shouldn't just be one or the other. Ideally, you should be able to engage one or engage the other as needed or wanted. Does that make sense so far?
Yes,
So
100%.
imagine that in your brain, there's a little piece in there somewhere that controls focus, just like the little button or knob in the projector. And imagine that you can go back into your room and you can sort of work on your brain and you can actually increase your ability to focus on a singular topic for extended periods of time. You're going to get a whole lot done. Suppose you're reading a book or studying something or writing a piece or whatever the case might be, you get a lot done if you're able to focus.
Yeah.
So again, other times you may not want to do that. You may want to have this diffuse awareness because there's an advantage to that as well in other circumstances. The key is to have control over that. When do I need one? When do I need the other? And be able to engage one or the other at will. So, so if you go into your back into the room and you imagine that you're fine tuning your brain and developing both abilities, you're going to find that both of those abilities increase to a remarkable extent. For instance, This thing that we call intuition, or even sixth and seventh sense, these things are nothing more than the extreme case of diffuse awareness. In other words, I can focus on what I'm doing right now, or I can expand my awareness so much, so much, so much, so much that I actually begin to catch vibrations that are not even physical. I call that intuition.
Yeah.
And, and that's one of the things that we do in things like regressions and all. You expand your awareness so much, you see? So the key here is not to have one characteristic only. The key is to develop the entire range of possibilities for any characteristic. I'll give you another example: strength versus relaxation. You want to be able to relax so much your physical body that you're limp like a rag doll. You want to have that ability to relax on a moment's notice at will, totally relaxed. Like if we move you, you feel like linguine, like spaghetti, like totally relaxed. And yet, you want to develop your body to the point where you have strength and you can jump up at a moment's notice and you're ready to go into action if need be.
Hmm.
So it's not about being tense or relaxed, it's about having the entire range of possibilities. So if you look at a cat, for instance, and the cat is relaxed, the cat is super relaxed, very limp, very loose, very soft. But that cat sees a bird and it jumps, extremely fast. And so he has the ability to go from total relaxation to total contraction at a moment's notice. We should learn from the cat in this particular case. And again, every characteristic, we should be able to increase the range from the least to the most, and increase and stretch and expand. And that makes us better people, more well-rounded, better. So those are all great things to develop. And you can go back into your room, into this mind room, and you can make those kinds of expansions and adjustments, and you can work on whatever it is that you want to work on. And you can create, again, not only experiences, but characteristics as well. You can become a different person. And that's huge. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
So we're not just using this to, like, in the sense of the law of attraction, to attract a certain experience, although that's great as well. You can also use this to create characteristics within you, being more forgiving, being more loving, being, whatever you want to develop.
It's so crazy, like this jumping on. It's funny that you bring up being able to have that instinctual moment of complete relaxation to the strength, because just this past 2 weeks, this specific person where in the beginning you mentioned having a friend or knowing, or even just the intuition of needing the help and sharing the light with them. I've picked up like energy with the person, and that same person is the who I asked for help to feel. I tried to compare it to feeling like a kid again, where I felt that control, where I made the joke. I was like, I want abs. But he understood that what I meant by that was that full control, and then that sense of urgency of being able to be fully relaxed, but having that full control of the body. So it's just funny that you had
Yeah,
were speaking of all of this. So I'm like
that, yeah,
walking
yeah,
into class.
yeah. We're both tapping into the same station, if you will. It's like two people listening to the same radio station. So these
Yeah.
ideas are up in the air, and we can all tune into them. So this idea of spirituality, for instance, the idea of God, the idea of peace, and the idea of violence, those are simply different radio stations that are up in the air. So if we begin to discuss violence or destruction, next thing you know, everybody gets really upset here. We're not going to do that, of course, but we would all get upset, and that's because we all begin to tune in to those frequencies. But the same thing happens if we all begin to talk about peace, harmony, co-creation, development, wealth, prosperity. We begin to discuss those good ideas, and we begin to tap into those radio stations. And I mean radio like as in a metaphor, like those
Mm-hmm.
vibrations that are up in the ether. You begin to, suddenly you're getting all these ideas. Oh, let me do it this way, let me do it that way, let me call so and so, let me, and next thing you know, your life begins to grow in that direction, because
Mm-hmm.
we're tapping into those resources that are available to all of us, they're all here. Everything is here. We're just tuning into one thing or another. And this is why it's really important to cultivate good thoughts. And this is one reason why it's important to have good, healthy relationships in your life. Because according to who you interact with, you're going to be stimulating certain thought frequencies, and therefore you're going to be growing in a different direction. So it's important to cultivate good friendships and good relationships with people whom you admire, people you want to become more like. In other words, spend time with people who have what you want, or spend people who have those kinds of vibrations, because you tend to become more like them as well.
My mom used to tell me, "Show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are." And I
Yeah,
never used to understand that until I got older, and it's true.
yeah, those
Thank you
vibrations. Yeah,
for
thank
letting
you.
me share.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Wonderful. Welcome. And it's really awesome that you're here. Does anyone else want to say anything?
I just want to say that's interesting. My mom used to say the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. There's one study that I read a while back that says that even your income, if you take the five closest people to you, you average their income, and it's going to be pretty close to your income. Think about that for a second.
It's true.
The five closest people to you, their income, the average is about what you make. And that's amazing. So, right down to that kind of detail. Things like health level, weight level. If a person hangs around obese people, they tend to become obese because it kind of, you begin to adopt that as a natural way of, you begin to eat more, you begin to gain weight. Vice versa, if you begin to hang around people who are really healthy and lean, and you begin to feel inadequate if you're overweight, so you begin to adjust that accordingly. So what we want to do is we want to include everybody, because everybody's welcome, but we want everybody to grow together. In other words, we want to elevate, we want to be better together. So each one of us has a remarkable gift to add, to contribute. And when you allow your light to shine, when you allow your talents to shine, you're really adding light to the collective. We need more light into the collective. So, whatever talents you have, whatever gifts you bring, make sure that you develop them. Don't just keep them in the closet of your mind. Don't just keep them in for yourself. Develop your talents, work on these things. Make sure that it happens, that it shines, because you're benefiting humanity in more ways than one. You're adding light to the world, and that's really, really important. So that's great. Does anyone else want to say anything? Maria, we haven't heard you today. Are you there?
Hi, good night. Yes, I'm here.
How are you?
Fine, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm
Good to
getting
see-
so much better. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Did you have a good experience in the meditation?
Yes, I almost fall asleep
Oh,
while
good.
while building my window.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was fun, and I got relaxed, and I just meant to wake up more earlier and more up, because I always wake up like sleepy and takes me like 2 hours to get up. So yes, I've been searching all my life to be a morning person.
Oh, that's wonderful. You know that speaking of the morning person thing, I was always a late night person my whole life. I never liked to wake up early. When I was a kid, my dad would wake me up to go to school. I really disliked that. I did not like to wake up early in the morning. I mean, a great time for me to wake up was 10 o'clock, 9, 10 o'clock. About 10 was my preferred time for really most of my life, until I went to Japan. Went to Japan, spent about 17 days there, and for the first and second nights, I didn't really sleep, because the time is so different. But then I got into the Japanese time, and when I came back, I became a morning person. I wake up early, excited, and at night I feel a little sleepy. My body clock switched. It's already been 5 years since that trip, and it has held. My body clock shifted. It could also be the age, whatever, I don't know. But it shifted after that trip. It's really, really incredible. So I know for a fact that your circadian rhythm can change. In my case, it was after the trip, but it can change. And so, in the book Awesome Again, which by the way was #1 on Amazon for a while. It's a great book. I think it's a great book. And in the book I
What book was
show,
it?
it's called Awesome Again. It's on Amazon. If you look up my name, Flavio Ballerini, on Amazon, it
Your
comes
book?
out. Yeah.
Awesome again.
Awesome.
Okay. And now we're
Again.
planning a trip to Japan to see if I can wake up more earlier.
In the book, I describe an exercise that you can do to adjust your body clock. There's a very specific type of exercise that you can do to become a morning person or to wake up later or earlier, so you shift your body clock, because ideally you should be able to wake up without an alarm clock. You should be able to, ideally, so that your body wakes up naturally. That would be preferable. So you can shift your body clock. And I describe an exercise of how to do that the proper way. So yeah, it's all in there. If you the book is available on Kindle, on Audible, and also on paperback. And
Is it your voice for Audible?
yes, it is. I recorded it. Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, it was a cool project.
I'm an old fashioned. I have Kindle. I love it. But a book, I like it. I like so much more. It's more like personal. I don't know. Like,
Oh, I love Audible because it's easy in the car.
Yeah. I like both. I like all formats. But Maria, it would be such an honor for me to send you a copy of the book, and I'll sign it for you. I mean, I didn't know that you wanted it, but I would be so happy to send it to you, out of gratitude for, if you send me a message later with your address, I'll be more than happy to put one in the mail. I'm out of town. I'm going out of town in the morning, but when I come back, I'll put one in the mail for you. I have a few copies at home, and I'll sign it and send it to you, and then you can read it on paper.
and how can I pay it?
You don't need, no, it's my gift.
Oh no, business is business. It's your job. I gotta pay for it.
If you want to, I mean, if you want to do that, just purchase it on Amazon. But I was going to gift it to you. But what I would appreciate, is if you put a good review in on Amazon. I mean, that helps other people find the book. So anyway, it's on Amazon, and there's also a book on the philosophy of therapy. It's a really, really, if you're a therapist or if you're interested in therapy, it's a very, very, it's a philosophy book, and it's a really good book. It's called The Philosophy of Therapy. It's also on Amazon under my name. So guys, it's been a fun evening. Does anyone else need to say anything?
Thank you so much, because one of the gifts I always purchase for people are books. I mean, I like when some people give me really good books that change my life. So I didn't know about it. I heard, but I didn't know about it. So I just bought a book this morning. So if I were I bring the both with the same shipping and handle. But I gotta look up tonight or tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I put it in the chat, the title of the book. This is a good book. Everybody so far has reviewed it with 5 stars, and people seem to like it a lot. There's a whole section there on the science of change, neurology, genetics. There's a bunch of science there. There's a whole bunch of philosophy in there. So it's a very comprehensive book. It's almost like a study guide, that has a ton of information. There's a whole chapter there on the value of routines. It's quite comprehensive. It's 47,000 words, so it's a pretty comprehensive book. There's quite a bit of information, and it's well researched. It's good information. So it's all there for you. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Have a fantastic night. Sleep well, rest.